Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday, everybody. We are back with Chit Chat Podcast. And I know we was off last Sunday for the Super Bowl Sunday. So we gave you guys that break for Sunday. And we're back this Sunday because we were hoping to have our couples episode, but we didn't get the volunteers for that. But nevertheless, we are back this Sunday with a very cozy, important conversation that we want to have today. And if you haven't already seen the flyer, the lessons of love, the legacy and lessons of love that we experience. Since this is the weekend of love, I thought it would be more appropriate for us to talk about some of the things that we've experienced, how life lessons and the things that we've experienced through love, whether it was relational, from family, from friendships, all those different types of ways that we express and give love. We can discuss some of those things. We can discuss some of those, share in some of those cozy conversations of what we've experienced and what we learned from those lessons. And then how we create our legacies from love. Like how are people going to remember you um, when 10 years or 15 or 30 years from now when they're talking about you? and and that's what legacy means, like how you loved, your love language, how you served, how you give, how you gave, and how you provided, how you make people feel, because people don't remember a whole lot of things about us, but they're going to always remember how we made them feel, right? And so that's how we create our legacies. That's how we set the foundation and build our legacies of how people remember us. You've gone to funerals and retirement ceremonies and different things, how people have spoken on the people that they've experienced, in their life, whether it was relational, through jobs, careers, work, or whatever the case may be. And they've often talked about how that person established their legacy, how that person established how they served, how they gave, how they spent their time, the things that they loved doing and the things that they was passionate about. That's how we create our legacies, and how we make people feel establishes that as well. Whether it's our children, as we're raising our children and rearing our children up, or if it's based off how we're serving our community. Sometimes, a lot of things we do in our community showcases how we're establishing and building our legacies as well. So a lot of these lessons, that we experience in life, are not just for us. Sometimes they're to help other people. Sometimes they're to feed into our communities, to feed into our families, to feed into the things that other people might need from us. And so that's why it's important to have these conversations. I know a lot of times when we talk about love, we always talking about relational ship stuff. Heartbreak and emotional intelligence of love and all of those things, and that's important as well. But there's so many different dimensions of love when we've experienced it. And and one of the most important things that we do on our daily lives is, I'm getting all cozy, y'all, on the side. But one of the things we do on our daily lives is we experience that with our families. We're around our families every single day. And so how we raising our children, how we're loving our husbands, how we're dealing with our siblings and and family members of that nature. And so and a lot of us now, as we're getting older, how we're taking care of our parents, how we're helping to, sometimes our parents do everything they can to take care of us, and then at the end of their life, sometimes that role reversed and we're taking care of our parents. So those are like lessons and love and legacies that are being established. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. I'm excited because I know this is everybody's wrapping up their Valentine weekend, and I hope you guys, had a phenomenal weekend. I hope that you was able to, do some things, whether you single, married, whatever the case may be. I hope that you got an opportunity to kind of experience this Valentine weekend love, because self-love is important too. We talk about relationships and family love and community love, but self-love is one of the should be at the top of your list, because in order for us to pour from our cup, in order for us to pour from ourselves to give to others in the measurement of love, we got to be able to have that in ourselves. I can't love nobody else if I'm not loving me, and vice versa. And so that's important. So we're gonna chat and talk in. So check in. Hey, Mr. Sutton. Look, we have Mr. Sutton. He be out of the country and he checks in on Sundays. We are thankful for your dedication to the podcast. And I know, Mr. Sutton, you probably got a lot of wisdom nuggets on this topic today. So we would love to hear you chime in on some of that. Mr. Sutton is a seasoned, I would say, a seasoned adult. And so because of that, I know that, life experiences and life lessons has probably been at the forefront of his life. And now that he's, in his latter years, I'm pretty sure that he can share in on some of those things. Just like you don't have to be a seasoned person to share in on some of your experiences that you've had based off of what you've experienced. Sometimes, look, a 20-year-old heartbreak can open the eyes and the window of somebody else, experiencing what they went through and learning from that kind of thing. And so we don't ever want to make it seem like you ain't experienced enough, based off what you've experienced, because everybody, measurement of what they dealt with in their life lessons and what they learned from it is going to be different. So we welcome that. This is the platform where we welcome that. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no good way or bad way of doing things. We're here to encourage, motivate, and inspire everybody on this platform. And doing so, we know that my experience might be different from yours, even though we've probably gone through the same kind of thing. But what I took from that, or the lessons or the wisdom that I took from that, might be different from what you experienced. So those are the things that we're going to discuss today, and give opportunity on this platform for people to share if they so willing to feel like they are capable of doing that. Now, look, we don't want you to get all into your juicy details about everything or whatever, but what you're willing to share, we're open to hear it. And of course, we like to keep our platform very peachy. So, but we do talk all things, all things women. So nothing is off the table. However, we do it in a respectful way and manner. So I just ask that you continue to do that as well. So I'm opening a floor, guys. I'm opening a floor to you guys to kick it off. Y'all hear my granddog? He's in the back. I have to get him a toy doing the podcast because otherwise he gets bored. So I had to get him a new toy. So, hey, Wendy. So that way he'll be occupied during this time. But yeah, that's him with the squeakiness in the background. So y'all try to ignore that if y'all can. But he has to get occupied some kind of way for this full hour. But anywho, so I'm going to open it up. How was you guys Valentine's weekend? Anybody want to share in on that? I know that did we have any new engagements happen? Did anybody in our group get engaged, newly engaged this weekend? I know a lot of that stuff happens around this time. So if you want to share in on that, share in on that. That's exciting to know. Any weddings, any surprise things that happened this weekend based off of our love weekend. You guys are welcome to share on that. But we're going to dive straight into our questions or whatever. So that way, because this hour go by so fast, what is love to you? Like, what does love really mean to you? I know that we have the love doctor on once a month, and Mr. Juan is very adamant about, making sure that we understand how to experience love. And one of the things that I took back from him was, we did a episode with him, two weeks ago, and he said, you don't fall in and out of love. Love is a decision. It's a choice. So a lot of times, when we look at love, people are like, oh, I don't feel out of love with that person. I'm not in love with that person. And based off the teachings that we've been having from him as a life coach that's, joined us once a month, he said that love is a decision. It's a choice. So if love is a decision and a choice, there's no way you can fall in and out of love, and there's no way that love can fail, right? He's teaching us that love should be intentional. I should be making that decision to say, I choose you. And whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, I'm working, towards, making things with my person. I make that decision. And so because we make those decisions, how do you view love? How have you experienced love, and what is love to you? So you guys can like drop your comments in the comment section, and Jada will highlight those. But based off what you experience, and based off what Mr. Juan has taught us about love being a decision, love being a choice, how have you experienced love? What has been one of the lessons from love that you have taught that has changed you and changed your view on love as well? So drop that in the comments, y'all. So that definitely changed. I think that's one of the ones that definitely changed mine, with him stating the fact that love is a choice, right? Because sometimes we always like, um, you know, how we deal with certain things in situations or whatever, but we choose to love the people we in. And when you fall out of love, or whatever you call yourself, falling in and out of love, that means you're making that decision to not love that person anymore. You're making that decision to walk away from love with that person. And so it's always a decision, it's always a choice. And when we make that choice, we are intentionally stating, I am no longer choosing you. I'm no longer choosing to love you. I'm no longer choosing to be with you, kind of thing. That's a choice. But it doesn't take away what we feel or how we're feeling or whatever the case may be. So tell me, Mr. Jesse said, love is choosing someone's well-being as deeply as your own. It is care without conditions. Absolutely. It is loyalty without pride. It is giving without keeping score. Oh my God, I love that. In a few words, love is commitment, compassion, and sacrifice wrapped in grace. Oh, I love that. Yeah, because love shouldn't even have conditions. If we're making a intentional choice to love somebody, it shouldn't even come with conditions. Because it don't matter what you do. I'm going to love you regardless. If I love you, I'm not going to stop loving you because, you left the toilet seat up, or whatever the case may be. I am choosing to love you. Jay said, because love is made to be unconditional. Yeah. Um, because people want to people want to add conditions to stuff that we do, right? Like, we gonna match energies. I'm gonna give when you give. I'm gonna do when you do. I'm gonna, all this kind of stuff. That's the generation we're living in, right? And so we're not experiencing love at that unconditional level anymore, because people are creating all these conditions and these ways of new ways of loving, and taking it, traditional things out of love, like, me choosing, and it's funny when Mr. Wine said about love being a choice and love being a decision. I thought about that thing when I was taking notes today, and I ain't even looked at my notes up right now, but I thought about that thing when I was taking notes, because back in the day, you remember how people would have arranged marriages, and they family would pick that person for them, and they would at a young age they would marry, and establish their family from there, and it was not a courtship going on, none of that stuff. And I feel like we've made things so complicated with dating. We made so many things complicated with all these stipulations in dating and courting and all this kind of stuff. And certain families feel like you know, you're not good for a person because where you come from, your economic background, or the family background, all this kind of stuff. And so they put so many stipulations on things, and who we date, how we should date, who we should date, and all of that kind of stuff, that it takes the unconditional things out of love. It takes the unconditional things away from being loved right, being loved properly, or whatever. Those people who got arranged marriages, some of the folks, we're seeing legacies of those families now, because somebody made a choice and said, this is going to be a great spouse for you or whatever. I don't know if I'm willing to choose my kids spouses. However, I am very good at choosing, like if somebody good for them or not. When I see it, I'll be like, I don't know about this one. But um but I have been intentional since their birth that I pray for their spouse. I pray for their life of marriage, their life of commitment, their life of covenant. And so I've always done that. I used to fast and pray on their birthday every year and cover them that way, and also pray for their spouses. So I'm very intentional about what I want to see, because that's going to be part of my legacy. Their life with their spouses and the children that they create, that's part of my legacy. So I have to be invested in that. And being invested as a parent is sowing seeds of prayer and covering them in prayer, even before they even meet their spouses. So, and they probably don't even remember me saying that I do this. But I'm very intentional about what I'm stating in those prayers for my children, because when I'm long gone out of this world, I want them to be able to, stand firm in the foundations that they're establishing for their families, because the generational creations, continues. And that's how legacies are established and presented. So yeah. Yeah. So love is a is commitment, is compassion, and it's sacrifice wrapped in grace. I love when you said sacrifice wrapped in grace, because one of my questions today was that, do you feel like love is a sacrifice? Why or why not? And I think it is, because if I'm making a choice to choose you, I'm choosing you regardless. I'm not concerned about what you got, what you don't got. I'm not concerned about your health problems. I'm not concerned about all those things. I am serving and loving through that. And so that's why love is sacrifice. It's sacrificial. Because some people at the turn of a bad relationship or family drama, whatever, they out the door. Boom, they gone. I don't want to deal with this. People give up so easily. And so, but you have to make sure, and especially if it's a relational thing, you have to make, or a marriage thing, you have to make sure that you're committed to somebody who's going to actually be there. If sickness failed on, either one of you, that person is not going to just jump ship and leave and take off with the money, or or go be out there doing other things and not concerned about your well-being, your health, and all those kind of things. Because we've seen movies about that, we've seen real life stories about that, but we don't want to actually experience that. We want to make sure that we're making the right choice with choosing love, and choosing our commitment on who we love and how we love that person. And then, the how we love comes in when we talk about love languages, right? And this can be and it don't always have to be in relationships. It can always be how you take care of your family. you know um Sometimes there's a open window of opportunity as parents for us to showcase love in a big way, because it's our kids first opportunity to see how love is expressed. And if we get it wrong, we can mess it up for our kids. If we get it wrong as parents on how we loving our children, how we're providing and supporting, and how we showcasing our love to them and rearing them and having the stewardship over their life and being their parents, we can ruin how that person, that child, loves later in life. Emotional intelligence is connected with how we are. Love is action. So if my love language is, I'm trying to make sure I show you better than I tell you, then it's gonna be some things that I do that you're gonna see. And without a reasonable doubt, you should know that I love you. And I felt like that's how my parents were back in the day. Like, you know, we growing up, we wasn't very big on saying love you, love you, love you, love you all the time like that. But did I know my mama loved me? Absolutely. Did I know my daddy loved me? Absolutely. And I knew it on how they took care of me, how they provided for me. And those were best ways of showcasing their love. And a lot of times you'll have parents that are not very emotionally connected, where they can bond with their children like that, being all, I love you, have a great day. Some parents come from backgrounds where they didn't experience that. So they don't know how to give that. And so, but we can change that as parents. Just because we didn't experience it, or just because we didn't, get it, when we was growing up, doesn't mean that it stops with us. Doesn't mean that we got to, trigger that down, on how we love and project love to everybody else, or how we choose love with everybody else. That's how we get all the trauma bonding and all the codependencies that starts, because people are unable to identify the things that they didn't receive, or they didn't connect with as a child. And then so they're out there projecting and giving love how they thought it should be, or how it looked like for them when they was growing up. And a lot of times a lot of parents won't admit it. They won't say, I didn't do the best job at showing my child how much I loved them. All I did was provide for them. I never said it, or I never hugged them, or I never, showed up for the games, but I was working hard to make sure they had food on the table, roof over their head, or they had the cleats and the equipment that they needed to play the sports and all those things, which is important. But a lot of times kids just want you to show up. It don't matter. It don't matter about working 80 hours a week or whatever, or you trying to, be the first millionaire in your family. None of that stuff matter, because at the end of the day, we won't be able to take none of that with us. We won't be able to take none of that. And then if we fall sick, ill, or whatever, all that stuff gonna easily evaporate. It's going to easily be taken and tarnished and moved away from us, because people are not concerned about that. They're concerned about the substance that comes with love. They're concerned about, do I know that you're still going to be here when I turn around and I can't get out of bed, or I need help out of bed, or I need help going to the bathroom, or I need my medicine taken at so many times an hour. That's showcasing the love, when people are experiencing that and dealing with that, and those people are there to provide that and to give that. And they're giving it, not grudgingly. They're giving it because they love it. They give it because they love you. Give it because it's a sacrifice, and they willing to make that sacrifice for you. That's what's important. Mr. J said, love is when someone sees your scars and still call. Oh, don't make me cry with that. Yes. Love is when someone sees your scars and still calls you beautiful. Yeah. My daughter danced to this song in a pageant some years ago called Scars. I think it Jada called Scars to Your Beautiful, or I can't remember what the name of the song, but it was something related to that. And hearing that song and the words to that song, it talks about, somebody, but the person realizing how beautiful they are inside without somebody else recognizing or claiming how beautiful they are. But yeah, I think it scars to your beautiful. But hearing that, it makes you feel like, um, me loving me is important in order for me to love somebody else. And so if I can see and accept my flaws inside of me and what I don't like about me, surely I can do it for somebody else. I can see their scars, I can see their flaws, or whatever. My thing is, I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be able to work on the things that that needs work. Nobody's perfect, but if you're working and you're it's a continuous effort of you saying, I want to be better. I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to be better, today than I was, a week ago. Those kind of things matter, because when love is action, when you see people making the efforts to do what they say, or do what they say they're going to do or trying to do, it makes a difference. Um, Definitely an affirmation song. Yes, yes, it is. I think I'm gonna put that on repeat, as I'm preparing for this pageant coming up, because there's things you always see and you be like, oh no, because you know, I'm about to be 50, and there's all these flaws. I'm not sure if my body gonna be look the way I want it to look in this dress, or where I want it to look in the active way. All these things come in mind. But listening to that song, I'm gonna have to create in my mind, you're gonna be beautiful with whatever you have on, however you present it, as long as you being true to you and loving you. And so that's what I got to, regardless of age, because we see it where people are doing the comparison thing. I've never been a person to compare myself with anybody. I'm confident in me, but there's things that I see, because my body has gone through a transformation as well. There's things that I see that I don't like. And so because I feel like I don't like it, I feel like somebody else ain't gonna like it. And that's not always the case. I always hear differently, but hearing it is different than me believing it. And so once I start believing it, then I'm just like, okay, yeah. But that is important. So I wanted to talk about a little bit, when we what's one of our first questions, Jada? Throw one of our first questions up. Okay, great one. What kind of love did you experience growing up, and did it shape how you love today? That's important. So what kind of love did you guys experience growing up, and did it shape how you love today? And you can be honest with yourself. You don't have to, you don't have to put in the comments if you don't want to, but you can answer that question and be honest with yourself. Because a lot of times we experience bad things with love based off people past traumas and issues that they haven't faced or conquered. A lot of times we deal with, experiences, you know, that people haven't dealt with, and so they bring those different experiences and things along the way, attaching it when they're attached to people, and you're like, what? I'm loving. Oh gosh, let me tell you how important this message and episode was today, because at church today, the sermon topic was when love is not enough. Oh my gosh. And I said, oh my God, I love how God confirms a thing or whatever, because I was like, this is the weekend of love. So let's kind of recap everything and talk about our legacy and lessons of love. And then today at church, that was the message, when love is not enough. So when love is not enough for you, or if what kind of love that you experienced growing up, how did it shape how you love today? Because sometimes you can love the love out of people, and it still won't be enough. Some people are so broken and so disconnected to love that they don't know how to receive it when it's genuine. They don't know how to receive it when it's authentic, because they never experienced it. And because they never experienced it, they don't, it's like foreign language to them. It's like, whoa, this is too much for me, kind of thing. When people are used to like different cycles, different generational cycles, and they like to see things on repeat. They're not considering something going good unless it got a little chaos, a little toxicity. And when they see that, then they feel like, okay, I'm good, kind of thing, which that's not healthy. Most people think that, you got to be in something, somebody got to show a version of crazy to show how much they love you. I don't want that kind of love. I don't want that kind of love. I don't need that kind of love. And I don't want my children to experience that kind of love, because you don't have to experience a level of craziness, or a level of control, or a level of, domestic violence for somebody to showcase how much they love you. Love doesn't hurt. Love does not hurt. So people are not, people should not be intentionally hurting you and then come back to make you feel good, to, for you to experience that as love. No, that's not love. And we have to be mindful of the cycles and the generational cycles. And some of this stuff is passed down from families. And so when it's passed down from families and these people are not facing and conquering the things that they need to face, they jump into relationships. And before you know it, is happening in their relationship, what they've experienced, what they've seen, what they've dealt with, what they thought was love or what they experienced was love. And so when somebody's trying to love them through all of that, trying to cover them, trying to care for them, trying to nurture them, trying to provide, trying to pray for them, they're like, whoa, this is too much. They don't want to receive it because that's not what they're used to. They're used to some chaos. They're used to some things being chaotic, toxicity, all that stuff makes sense to them. And that's not always the case. It don't always have to be the case. Even if you came from a family like that and that's how you experience love in a household, you don't have to continue it. Let it stop with you. Let it stop with you. And one of the things that I had to make a decision of, because I didn't realize that I was doing it. And my children made it a note to me like early in when they was younger, they didn't feel like I was expressing love to them because, I didn't get that expressed love. I knew that my parents loved me. I knew that my mom loved me, but it wasn't expressed like that. It wasn't like, oh, give me a hug before you go for the day kind of thing, but I knew how she loved me based off what she did, what she provided, how she took care of us, how she nurtured us in the house when we got sick and all those kind of things. But rarely did I hear her say, I love you. And so when I start raising my kids, they rarely heard that because all I was doing was trying to hustle and bustle and build this life for us, kind of thing, and make sure they had a great life. But all they was missing was that connection. They wanted that connection. They wanted to hear mom say, I love you. I'm proud of you and all these kind of things. And even though I showed it based off what I did for them, they wanted to hear it. They didn't care. They didn't care what you bought them. They didn't care, all those stuff. They wanted to hear you say, I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry, those kind of things. And that's important because even if come from families that didn't do that, we should be establishing that. So that way we can create a legacy for ourselves going forward that, I'm not going to do or I'm not going to be the kind of love that I experienced if it was not a positive thing. I want to give something different. I want to be different than that. So yeah. So what kind of love did you guys experience growing up and did it shape how you love today? So if you want to answer that question, drop it in the comment. JD, you can go to the next question. What is one of the lessons love has taught you that changed you forever? Mm, and that's good. What is one lesson that love has taught you that has changed you forever? And I know a lot of us has probably experienced, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, family, family gonna teach you some stuff about love. if you ain't even in a relationship, don't worry, because family will teach you some stuff about love. It will give you an opportunity to see love on those levels. So, what is one lesson that love has taught you that has changed you forever? Drop it in the comments. What is one lesson? One of the lessons that I know that I have learned, and I think I've shared this probably on one of our episodes or whatever, or you probably heard me say it, or if you follow my page, you probably see me say it and post it or whatever. But one of the lessons that love has taught me that has changed me forever is I'm no longer giving benefit of the doubt. I'm no, and that's a choice that I'm choosing because, and I'm no longer painting red flags white. And that's because I'm not giving benefit of the doubt. And that's because, when people show you who they are, you have to believe them. You can't give benefit of the doubt sometimes because people if they're willing to change, they will make the change. You will be able to see it. The Bible always tells us how we should we're not judging people, but we should be fruit inspectors. We should check the fruit that they bear. If you're a Christian, if you're a person, I should be able to tell that without you opening your mouth telling me you're a Christian, because of the way you live, the life you live, the legacy you establishing. And of course, people can pretend, but you know what? I'm a firm believer that pretenders and those who pretend and try to play the role and put on a facade, that only lasts for so long. It only lasts for so long. You know, my mom used to always say, to be a good liar, you have to have a good memory. And that is the awful truth. People they don't remember some of the things that they say, because they're so busy, trying to portray and put on a facade, or got this mask on, trying to mask who they are and who they trying to be, when in reality they're not that. And so, yeah, so that's one of the lessons that has taught me in love, that has changed me for. I'm no longer giving benefit of the doubt. When you show me who you are, and that you no longer, that you don't want to change or be better, I have to accept it for what it is. And I make the decision if I want to stay or move forward. And I can already tell you, I'm gonna be like deuces. I'm getting ghost. Because I'm not wasting any more time. Hey, Peaches. Yeah, watch a person's actions. Yeah. And I always say that. I've always been a person that says, love is action. Love is an action word. I don't do the lip service. Don't tell me, oh, you can tell me you love me 1,000 times, but if I don't see, or I don't see how you're showing how you love me, you saying it 1,000 times not going to change it. Just like Peter said, you got to watch a person's actions. Love is what love does. So if you love me, I should be able to see that you love me. Your actions should back up what you're saying. And that's a lot of times where people get caught up, you know. Um, we have to make sure that, these lessons that we're being taught that are changing us, that we don't repeat these cycles, that we're not finding ourselves falling back in the same thing too. So, and I understand. And one of the other lessons that I learned that has taught me is that I can create. And I think one of my um, sisters in at my old church had posted this one day on her page about the difference of creating boundaries, healthy boundaries, and create the difference between boundaries and walls. And that thing was so important, to hear, because oftentimes we think that we're creating, boundaries, when indeed they're walls, because we're not allowing people to come in, or we're not allowing things to happen anymore, because we're cutting things off. It's like, boop, done deal, boop, pump your brakes kind of thing, where boundaries establish those parameters, and it creates healthy conversation, saying, I created this boundary because when you do X, Y, and Z, it does this to me. And because it does this to me, I need this boundary established, so that I know that, going forward, that, you are intentional about how this has made me feel, and you're working on, doing things better. And it gives them an opportunity to correct actions, correct things, or whatever. When you put up walls, look, and I used to be a person that had walls. I think for years, I think I didn't even start dating for years after my husband and I split. And when we didn't get a divorce till, and that's how bad it was for me, because I was such a person, you know, marriage was so important to me. And so I kept saying, well, if we get a divorce, he just gonna have to file the papers. I'm not filing the papers or whatever. And so those things, and I was putting myself in bondage, because he was out there living his life, just living his life, footloose and fancy free, and here I am in bondage. I can't move on and move forward because I'm still legally attached. And because I had this thing like I mean, I'm not giving up on my marriage. So if he wants a divorce, he has to file for it, all this kind of stuff. And that's how I was thinking. And so until one day during a time of my fasting and consecration time, God was releasing me. And when he was releasing me, he gave resources available for it to happen. Because at first I was sending, divorce papers everywhere. I was sending to his girlfriend's house, to everybody I know where he was laying and playing. And and he would turn it down, and he would turn it down, so that way he didn't have to sign him. And I was like, this is not fair. I feel like this is gonna go on for years, and my lawyer said, nope, there's other things there's other perimeters we can do, whatever. And we give a time frame for him to respond, and all those things had to happen. But that was a lesson that I learned, that had taught me, that had changed me forever. If I'm ever put into that situation again, the decision is made, because I have to think about the importance of my life and the time that I've invested and the time that I can't get back. And so, I'm no longer giving benefit of the doubt, and I'm no longer painting red flags white. And so when I create these boundaries, it's not to shut people out, but it's to establish things so that I know that if you're intentional about me, if you're intentional about your choice of loving and being committed to me, then you're gonna respect those boundaries, and we're gonna create and build from there. But but when we establish walls, ain't nobody getting in. Walls don't allow anything in. Boundaries is kind of like a entry. You got an entry point. At some point, you know, there's a place where that boundary could probably actually be removed, because you guys are working on things, you're communicating, you're the message is being relayed on things, and the actions are being intentional on how you're trying to produce and to do things better. So Mr. Just said, I learned that love is supposed to uplift, communicate, and choose you over and over again until you get into. Yes. Oh my gosh. Let's not talk about narcissistic relationships. Yeah. Yeah. Um, it should be uplifting, you know. Um, it's not, is it going to always be peaches and cream? Absolutely not. But at the same time, when there's moments where I can't be 100% me, I'm expecting my partner to be able to take on that, say, hey, I got you. That's when that uplift comes in. That's when that communication coming. Hey, you ain't being yourself. What's going on? You want to talk about it? Those kind of things. And that's how you choose over and over again that person. Yeah, this is my person. This is the person that I made the decision to be intentional about, in loving and supporting and encouraging and uplifting and motivating, you know, through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and sometimes through the sickness too, because sometimes that happens, you know. And we need to make sure, that's why making sure who you love and how you love is important, because everybody's not going to love that way. Everybody's not going to choose you or make that decision and then be intentional about uplifting and communicating, like Mr. Sutton said, and choosing you over and over again. Some people at the sight of a trouble, or the sight of a problem, or the sight of somebody saying what they should do and how they should do it, oh, they out, they're bouncing, they're giving up, they're leaving. And so, but at the same time, whatever they don't face and conquer, they're going to repeat it. That's how repeated cycles happen. And so we have to be careful about that, just bouncing and jumping and saying, hey, I'm done, you know, but you're not willing to communicate, work through those things, those issues, and find out and communicate and find out how choosing, or, making yourself intentional about the choice of love, and committing to that, works. So yeah, that's good. So Jada, give us the next question. Did a painful ending ever become your greatest teacher? Ooh, don't it always? Some of our biggest teachers have always been like, pain or heartbreak or betrayal or grief. Some of those things are always our greatest teacher. I hate that people experience it and deal with things like that, but that's life. And so we have to be careful, like who we choose to love and who we choose to give that opportunity to say, this is my choice. This is the person that I am choosing, regardless, for my life to be my life partner, to be the person that, in sickness, they wiped in my face and giving me a bath or giving me medication, or vice versa. I'm doing the same for them, because that's important. That's important. That's what choosing somebody over and over again means. And sometimes we have those painful endings where we feel like, I'm done with love. I'm done with that, or people be like, nope, I married for love the first time. I'm not married for love again. It'll be for something else this time. It'll be for money or stability or whatever. And people have their own agendas. So they attach their own agendas to it. And it creates these painful endings because, people are, you know, intentional about what they're doing, and they've communicated that. And then others try it, and then they're like, nope, I'm done. And these painful endings are created. And sometimes it's our greatest teacher. We overcome all that stuff. It just takes time. It's not good when you're going through it. You feel it, cry them cries, scream, kick, do whatever you got to do. But at the end of the day, get back to a place where you don't ever give up on yourself, or you don't ever give up on the opportunity to love and to be loved, right? Because it's there, it's out there. Just because one painful ending happened does not mean that it's going to create another. You know, you know, choose yourself to say, I deserve it. I'm worthy of it. And that's what I intend to do, because I want the love that I have been given. I want to reap that love. I posted that, I think yesterday. I want to reap the love that I've been given, the love that I give to people, you know and it's not always love on a relationship way. I mean, I love people that are friends. I love people who I mentor. I love people that I meet, because they become a vital part of my life. I talked about how God has been intentional since my mother's passing, how he's planted. I'm trying to get emotional about this. How he has planted women of wisdom in my life in the place of my mother. And so it does not matter where I go. I'm telling you, when I lived in Alabama, there was a person there. Since I've been up here, there's been a person here. Um, when I was in Georgia, just all these different places. And when I was in Florida, there's always been like this mother figure somewhere, always guiding me and instilling some things in me, about life, about, parenting, all this stuff. So God has been intentional about placing those people in my life, because he know how I am. Especially with my elders, I love to sit at the feet of my elders. Me and my grandma we can talk for days. We get on the phone, or I go to Georgia to her house to visit her. We sit in the living room talking nonstop, because I love the way that she was imparting into me. It was like me being at a well, just getting filled, and all those things that she's given to me is giving me an opportunity to impart that into other people. So when I mentor other young ladies, when I mentor other people who come across my path, it's not by mistake, because iron sharpens iron. They've done those things. They've imparted those things in me, and God allowed me to receive that. And because I've received it, now I'm giving it back. I'm giving it back. So not every painful ending can be a disaster. Even though it's our greatest teacher, sometimes it's the best life lesson, and it pushes us to look within. Why did I accept that? Why did I feel like I'm not worthy of this, that, and the other? I'm only asking bare minimum, but I deserve way more. I deserve top chef stuff. And why did I feel like that was enough for me? So we should always look at ways to let it be our greatest teacher by examining things first within us, because we can point fingers at the other person or who did us wrong all day long. But it's important that we get what we supposed to get out of that experience, and allow that to be our greatest teacher, so we ain't repeating cycles, so we're not doing the same thing over again. So when that same thing happens or tend to try to happen again, we be like, oh, hold up, I seen this before. Mm-mm. Can't fall for the okie doke kind of thing. So you're aware of it, and that's too because you establish those boundaries, so healthy boundaries. So and you're not blocking people off. That painful end does not cause you to put up walls, saying, "Hey, I don't want to put up no wall," but these kind of things trigger me, in a relationship when I see people do X, Y, and Z, because you're showing me that you're not intentional about what is required of this commitment, or what is required of this relationship, or whatever the case may be. So yeah. So Jada, go ahead and put our next question up. I'm ready to see. Does love require sacrifice? We answered that in the beginning. I think when Mr. Jesse put his answer up about love being a sacrifice, and we know it's a sacrifice when we're saying that people are choosing, when love is like watching, letting somebody choose you over and over and over again. That's sacrifice. When I know there's opportunity for me to go out there and date whoever I want to date, to be married to whoever I want to be married to, if it was just that simple for me. I'm not trying to be married just to be married. I'm not trying to date just to be dating. It's important for me to choose a person based off them choosing me as well, because we're being intentional about our commitment, about our covenant, or whatever. So yeah, it's easy to go out there and date a whole roster full of jokers. But at the end of the day, if that's not who I want to be, I don't like casual dating. I don't do casual dating. I don't do casual anything. I don't like it. So I'm intentional, and the person dealing with me gonna always know how intentional I am about what I'm seeking, and that gives them in the beginning, hey, you want to stick around, you want to deal with it, what you want to do, kind of thing, because I don't sugarcoat it. I'm not a casual. I'm not a serial dater. I'm not a casual dater. Ain't nothing casual about me. I am totally committed to what I want to choose, and be intentional about loving and doing, and finding my person and finding my mate for the or aligning myself to be found by my mate for the rest of my life. I ain't doing no casual nothing. So nope. So yes, love does require sacrifice, and sometimes it's going to sacrifice our time. Sometimes we're going to have to give up some time. Hey, we can't, sometimes it's going to require you doing some things differently. You're not going to be able to do the same things over and over and over again and think things should remain the same. No, do some stuff differently. It's going to require sacrifice, meaning sometimes it's going to take going to therapy, going to counseling, figuring out those things that have concerned you or concerned the other person, and you guys trying to figure it out, and you need those individuals who are that's their expertise in helping you find and figure those things out. So that's a sacrifice. That's saying, hey, we're putting our stuff out there. We putting our stuff out there to this therapist or this counselor, in regards to trying to get the help that we need, or whatever, we're putting this out here for our family because our family has issues, and we got family drama that date back years, and we trying to make sure that we can have a good barbecue on the 4th of July. We can have a good family reunion without people, getting mad or fighting or, calling each other names. So those kind of things, that's sacrifice. You know, it's sacrifice when you tell your friend, I'm there for you. It don't matter what, any time of the night, whatever the case may be, whatever you're going through, that's sacrifice. And a lot of times we're unwilling to give up that time or that sacrifice because we feel like it's too much. Like, you know, you know, if that person is important enough for you, it requires that. Love requires sacrifice if that person is important to you enough. So I believe that. So you guys drop your comments in if you believe that love requires sacrifice, and if you do, why not? You know, and have you made some sacrifices? Sometimes love requires you to relocate. Yeah. So love requires you to relocate. And sometimes love requires you to hush your mouth and be quiet. And so, you don't always have to get the last word in, and you don't always have to say what you thinking. And sometimes love requires that, and that's sacrifice. I can't say what I want to say because I know that's going to trigger something, or that's going to cause a problem or a conversation that I don't think we're ready to have yet, or a conversation. So sacrifice, yeah. There's things that you're going to have to sacrifice when it comes to love, when it comes to taking care of your children as a parent. You I can't even remember all the things that I sacrificed and gave up with my kids, and that was my choice. Not that my kids demanded that of me or anything like that, but I knew that I did not want to have to be dating different people and have them around different people, as they was growing up. So they didn't say mama dating. And I was okay with that, because I was busy trying to establish, our family, and trying to, get us rooted and grounded in a foundation that was going to set them up for life, and set them in places where, that can be beneficial for them. And so, there's a lot of things time, I can't remember, not even having it. If I wanted to date, not even having the time to date, because I was traveling with my son on travel ball, and then when he was playing school ball, the weekend games, and then a lot of times when in high school, you have the playoff games, and so they practicing on Thanksgiving Day half of the time, because they're making it in the playoffs and playing after the you know for the holiday, and for towards going towards this championship and all those things. So you're sacrificing. Like, God, we can't even go visit grandma this Thanksgiving because he got football practice. So we got to just stay home, and I got to drop him off football practice, go back home and finish cooking a dinner, pick him up from football practice. All those things that we sacrifice because we want to make sure that our love showed the intentions of what we was trying to do and what we was trying to create in our family. So Mr. Just said only one person is always sacrificed. That's not love. Exactly. It got to be a two-way thing. It got to be a two-way street. It can't be one way. You cannot be the only one sacrificing and giving up and doing the work. If that other person is not, it's a conversation needs to be had expeditiously. Because we do. Time waits for no one, and I'm a big advocate on time. That's time you can't get back, and that's time that you're not able to like receive, you know, benefits of. I'm not reaping anything out of this warp time because you don't want to put in the work, or you refuse to put in work. You don't want to put in those sacrifices. You see me doing and giving and all this kind of stuff, and all you're doing is taking, and there's no reciprocal efforts. So yeah, so you're absolutely true, Mr. Sutton. Only one person is always acting out. That's not love. That's selfish. That's selfishness. Absolutely. All right, Jada, our next question, and probably our last question. Can love exist without boundaries? Now, I want to hear y'all intake on this, because I am in I'm establishing boundaries. and I think they're healthy boundaries. You know, my therapist will tell me if they're not, but I'm establishing boundaries, and I feel like I don't want to just create all these boundaries like up, and I want to create a boundary for this. You know, it's not about that. I want I want to be able to love and still have these boundaries where it's not creating any kind of conflict, or it's not creating, you know, a, a wall between the person and I. So, can love exist without boundaries? Do y'all think love can? I think it can, because I've seen it exist, and I've seen boundaries being established because love existed without boundaries, and now boundaries is needed because somebody went outside the perimeters of that trust, or whatever, that foundation of that commitment, and because there was no boundaries there, they went outside of that. You know, distractions happen, people get pulled, things, you know, all that, no self-control, all of that. But when you create boundaries, you know, I think when two people can create boundaries for a relationship, especially after like a betrayal or something, I feel like it can do one or two things. It can make you or break you. It can either make you by, you know, building a stronger bond between you and that person, create more communication, you know, better communication between you two. And then sometimes, um, we've heard the saying, what doesn't kill us make us stronger. Sometimes it brings people together and pushes them to be stronger in their commitment, because, you know, sometimes it takes people losing something, or losing people, or losing whatever, for them to get some act right. I'm gonna say, like the kids be saying, get some act right, because sometimes people are not willing to sacrifice or do what they can, because they feel like, you know, hey, ain't no boundary established, so, you know, we ain't talking about that. So they feel like it's a free all until, you know, it happens, and then things, you know, start being in place, and they're like, oh wait, that person is ready to bounce, kind of thing. I'm not sure if I want to lose that person. And then, you know, then they want to put in the work, or create, or communicate about establishing boundaries. And you see it a whole lot. You see it a lot in, like, you know, social media, when you see a lot of the couples who have Facebook pages together. And a lot of times it's not always about cheating, you know, it's about establishing a boundary so that that won't happen. And so, you know, people are couples will create you know, a page together, and that's how they communicate with their family, their friends, or whoever. And then people who are, you know, attached to those people, or that couple, would know that, you know, there's boundaries for this Facebook page. You know, can't nobody be coming on here, you know, doing this, that, or being disrespectful to the covenant of that relationship, you know, when we're sharing a page, kind of thing. And so, you know, so you see those kind of boundaries that are established, and then others, you know, that is important as well, that can be used. Mr. Sutton said, boundaries are what keep love healthy, safe, and able to grow. Absolutely. And I'm all for boundaries. Without them, love loses clarity, respect, and direction. With them, love becomes deeper, freer, and more secure. Oh, amen to that. Clock that. I love it. Yeah. So without them, love definitely loses clarity, and respect. Um, you know, and what is love without respect? You know, I'm a big time person on men being in their rightful place. You know, I'm all, if I dated somebody, they probably heard me say, if you're gonna lead, lead. You know, don't expect me to tell you how to lead in a relationship, because I need to be able to see you, you know, leading as a person, not based off what I want you to do or how I want you to do. I need you to be able to show me that you can lead. So a lot of times they get to question me like, well, what you want me to do, or how you want me to do it? If you're gonna lead, lead. That's my answer to them. Because at the end of the day, I can't tell you what you need to do if it's not in you. So I need to be able to see it. And if I can't see it or whatever, then, you know, it's gonna show me some things that I need to know. So that's why that's one of my all-time answers. If you're gonna lead, lead. you know. And so, so they get that from me all the time. If that's somebody that has dated me, they've heard me say that before, especially if I'm very adamant about us being serious or in a committed relationship. If you're going to lead, that's important. That is very important. So what do you guys think? You know, before we wrap up and close, what do you guys think when it comes to, setting boundaries? And can love exist without those boundaries? Because I know, a lot of times it has happened. People have gone, astray and, based off of no boundaries being existed. And then when they created some healthy boundaries or whatever, it made that couple a lot stronger. They were able to grow. It was a safe and healthy place, um, you know, with those boundaries existing. So, do I think love can exist without them? Absolutely. But if there's something that's gonna test that, it's gonna require some boundaries to be established once it get tested. And so unless you're a person that you have some great self-control, and there's actually no boundaries needed or need to be discussed for the relationship or for the marriage or for the family or whatever, friendship or whatever the case may be. That's on you guys, but you need to make sure that you are intentional about you know the what ifs kind of thing. And so you know I wanted to share before we leave. One of the things that I seen this weekend was a video. Everybody probably familiar with Fantasia, and and I cried watching this video, y'all. Y'all know I'm a sucker for love, so I cried watching this video because um, her husband. She did a concert this weekend, and her husband came on stage during her concert, and he wanted to showcase love to her in a big way, because in their 11th year of being together, he felt like she never properly got the proper proposal that she deserves. And when they first started dating, they dated what, like 3 or 4 weeks, and then they got married. They was like, you want to do this thing? Yeah, let's go and do this thing. And they just got married. So it wasn't like he was saying, hey, will you marry me, kind of thing. So he felt like it was not a proper proposal. And and he wanted to yesterday, on Valentine's Day, at her concert, in front of everybody, a world audience. He wanted to, be intentional about how he chose her, how he's still choosing her, and how he wanted to, showcase that intentional choice of loving her. And I thought it was beautiful. I cried. I was like, oh my God. But and it was just so happy to see for her. And she did boohoo cry, of course. And we had that video, so I want to share that video before we leave, so we can wrap up with that video, and then I'll come back wrapping up with my final remarks. But Jada, if you can go ahead and play that video, please.
I gotta make something right. Hey, Houston, if you just give me a moment. For 11 years, on many anniversaries, many birthdays. Don't make me cry. I gotta be quick. And many Valentines, I share my angel with you. So give me some grace and share my wife back with me just for a moment. Respect. I adore you. And God has been so good in our lives. We fought through so much. We prayed through so much. We fasted through so much. We're ready to walk into a brand new home. But I can't walk into that home with you. I gotta make something right. And all the beauty that we've experienced over the years, we got a blind spot. You know, in 2014, we sat, we had a conversation, after 3 weeks of knowing each other, and we said, what if we get married? And we did it. Like we really did it. Just like, listen, I'm with you. But the one thing that's missing in our life is we talked about it and did it. But I didn't properly propose. The one thing that I've learned as a parent is that a good woman desires a proper proposal. But a godly woman, she deserves one. Hey, bro, let me get that. For 11 years, you woke up every morning and chose me. For 11 years, you've been an incredible mother to our children. For 11 years, we fasted and prayed. So I'm going to give you a carrot for every year. You're still by my side. So let us pray. Will you continue to let me love you, lead you, protect you, and push you as far as you can go and as high as you can fly until death do us part? Yeah, you don't need that little thing no more.
I loved it. Look, I'm getting teary eyed looking at it again, and I've already seen it before. But yeah, I mean, that is what choosing somebody over and over again means. That's what it means when you're intentional about the choice that you made to love somebody and to stick it out. Just like some of the comments we've said today, choosing somebody over and over again, having that healthy safety, giving clarity. Like he stated things, he wants to be there for her. He wants to be there, for her to continue to grow and do the things that she needs to do. That's what love is all about. It's about you being intentional and your person being intentional about the growth that both of you guys can have. It's not about, oh, I got all this, what you gonna bring to the table kind of thing. It's about what we're gonna establish when we're together. Once we create that choice to say we are intentional about who we are, what we are to each other, and how we're going to do this thing. So that's what legacy and lessons episode wanted to give you guys today. As I wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember that legacy isn't just about what we leave behind when we're gone. It is when you live out every single day. And I'm talking about living it out loud, being intentional. If you love somebody, that's living out loud and loving somebody out loud. You know, um, coming, on her concert stage, sharing the things that they had, privately committed to each other with, but showing that, because I seen that your heart and your sacrifice and the things that when within those 3 weeks that you said, yeah, you said you gave me your yes after those 3 weeks, and 11 years later, he wanted to sacrifice and give her, a love language of a diamond for every year. Of their relationship and their commitment. And I thought that was beautiful. And so, you know, it's how you love, it's in how you forgive, it's in how that's what legacy establishes, in how you love, in how you forgive, it's in how you show up when it's hard. Oh gosh. Let me make it through this. It's in the lessons you choose to pass down instead of the pain you inherited. I know a lot of us gone through some stuff. I know a lot of us experienced some stuff that we didn't even deserve, as children, as young adults, as teenagers, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it's the lessons that you choose to pass down instead of the pain that you inherited. Love is not just a feeling, it's a decision. We learned that from Mr. Juan, our love doctor. It's a decision to grow, just like Mr. Jesse said, a decision to heal. If there's things and opportunities, if there's been a betrayal, if there's been some, unforgiveness there, it's a decision to heal. We got to heal. If we're gonna stick this thing out, we got to work through this, and we're gonna have to heal. We're gonna have to forgive. A decision to break cycles so that the next generation doesn't have to carry what you refuse to confront. And I think that is so important today. And I'm gonna say that again. It's a decision to break cycles so the next generation, and I mean this, and I'm saying this because I'm about to get emotional. It's a decision to break cycles so the next generation doesn't have to carry what you refuse to confront. My kids should not have to carry the things that I've held inside, that I refuse to confront, that I refuse to deal with, that I refuse to heal from. They should not have to be able to carry that. I should not be able to pass that down to my children just because I'm hiding stuff. I'm hiding family secrets. I'm hiding how people think or view me or my family or whatever. No, heal, heal and be set free of that. So you're not passing that down to generational. You breaking cycles. Your legacy will not only be measured by titles, money, or accomplishments. It will be measured by the hearts you touch, how you loved, how you give, how you gave your time, how you gave your service, how you gave your quality of work. It will be measured by the hearts you touched, the wisdom you shared, and the love you chose when it wasn't easy. That's how we create legacies. That's how we establish legacy. So I'm gonna leave this with you. Ask yourself, what am I modeling? What am I teaching? Am I modeling something that I've seen in my past? Am I projecting the hurt, the negativity on to another generation or to my children or, to my friends or whatever the case may be? What am I teaching? Am I teaching them that unforgiveness can be harbored, you know, despite the fact that, I want to love and I'm saying I love you, but I'm harboring unforgiveness and I'm loving with conditions because I know how so and so hurt me. So I don't want to love you, wholeheartedly because I gave my heart to the last person and they hurt me and all this kind of stuff. We cannot do that. We cannot. So what am I teaching? What will they say about how I loved? 30 years from now, 20 years from now, if people are speaking at your retirement or at your funeral or at some event that's recognizing you or celebrating you, what would they say about how you loved? Because in the end, legacy and love go hand in hand. And the greatest inheritance you can leave is emotional wholeness, integrity, and intentional love. This is Chit Chat Pod. This is how we grow. This is how we heal. This is how we choose on purpose. You know, um, these are the conversations that we need to have. And that's why this platform is created to establish a safe space for us to have these kind of conversation. Until next time, I want you guys to protect your peace, build your legacy, and love intentional. So that way, when you're out there saying that I love so and so, they know that you love them, not because the words you say, but because the actions they see that's coming from you. Be intentional about how you love so it create a healthy legacy on how people speak about you the years to come. So, guys, that's it for today. Have a great one. I hope all of this kind of resonated with you today. And as we're leaving out of the Valentine's weekend, I hope that you guys were able to pull something from this, whether it's for your friendship, for your families, for relationships, whatever the case makes, and even for yourself. Don't forget self, because self-love is important. So be intentional about loving on you. Be intentional about taking yourself on a date, treating yourself to something. A lot of times we always thinking we're looking for something from everybody else, but be intentional about loving you. That's important. And so, and create healthy boundaries where necessary as well. So that is it for us today. We'll see you guys back next week for Chit Chat Podcast. But thank you guys for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe if you have not already for Chit Chat Podcast. And if you felt like this message was important and it was a good message, share it with somebody this week. So they are intentional about how they loving, and they're intentional about establishing, creating their legacy. So have a good one, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye.